Imagine a world so broken, a financial crisis so devastating, that a mother is forced to do the unthinkable, putting a price tag on her own children. We often look at economic collapses through numbers, stock market tickers, and corporate bankruptcies. But the true cost of a financial crisis is measured in human tragedy. In 1948, a single photograph shocked the entire world, exposing the darkest, most desperate, and most heartbreaking side of human survival. This is the story behind history's most haunting image, a story of poverty, betrayal, and a trauma that lasted for generations. To truly understand how this nightmare happened, we have to look at the world in the late 1940s. Although World War II had ended and the Great Depression was technically over, the economic aftershocks were still crushing the working class. Millions of families who had survived both the Depression and the war were still living on the absolute edge of survival. One of these families was the Chalifoux family, living in a poor neighborhood in Chicago, Illinois. Ray and Lucille Chalifoux were facing a hopeless situation. Ray was an unemployed coal truck driver who struggled to find any steady work. The bills were piling up, they were months behind on rent, and they were facing immediate eviction from their home. To make things even more complicated, they already had 4 young children to feed, and Lucille was pregnant with their 5th child. They had no savings, no government safety net, and absolutely nowhere to turn. On a cold day in 1948, out of sheer desperation and panic, Lucille Chalifoux did something that would permanently scar American history. She walked out to the front porch of her house and hammered a wooden sign into the ground. In bold, handwritten letters, the sign read, "For children for sale, inquire within." Standing on the porch just above the sign were her 4 children, looking completely confused and innocent. There was Lana, who was 6 years old, holding her 5-year-old sister, Rayanne. Below them sat 4-year-old Milton and 2-year-old David. They had no idea that their own mother had just put them on the market like used furniture. Shortly after the sign was put up, a local newspaper photographer noticed it and took a picture. When the photograph was published in the Chicago Times, it sent shockwaves across the United States. At first, the public refused to believe it. People called the newspaper, claiming it must be a sick joke, a publicity stunt, or a dark piece of performance art to protest poverty. But the authorities and social workers quickly found out that the truth was much worse. The sign was not a joke. The family was genuinely prepared to part with their children for cash. Within just 2 years, the sign vanished, and so did the children. One by one, all 4 siblings, along with the baby Lucille was pregnant with, were either sold or given away to different buyers. But if you think these children were rescued by loving, wealthy families who wanted to save them from poverty, you are tragically mistaken. This story does not have a happy ending. The 2 oldest sisters, Lana and Rayanne, were bought by a local farming family named Zoeteman. The price for their lives, a mere $2. The family did not adopt them to love them. They bought them to use them as cheap, forced labor. Rayanne later recalled that she was chained up in a barn, beaten regularly, and forced to work long hours in the fields from morning until night. She was told from day one that she was not a daughter, but a servant. Her sister Lana passed away in 1998, carrying the deep scars of that abusive childhood to her grave. The younger brother Milton faced a similar brutal fate. He was taken by a family who renamed him Kenneth, but his new environment was filled with severe physical and psychological abuse. The trauma was so intense that as he grew up, he suffered from violent outbursts, eventually leading a judge to label him a menace to society. He spent years in a state mental hospital, fighting the demons of a childhood where he felt unwanted and discarded by everyone. The youngest boy in the photograph, David, was fortunately adopted by a relatively loving and stable family. He grew up to become a truck driver, but the emptiness of not knowing who he truly was haunted him his entire life. Decades passed, and the children grew into adults, separated by hundreds of miles, completely unaware of whether their siblings were even alive. The miracle happened decades later thanks to the internet and social media. In 2013, the surviving siblings, Rayanne and David, managed to find each other. After more than 60 years of separation, they finally reunited and shared their painful memories. But their reunion brought back the ultimate question that had haunted them for their entire lives. Why did their mother do it? And did she ever regret selling them? Before their mother, Lucille, passed away, some of the children actually managed to track her down and confront her. They expected tears, an apology, or at least an explanation born out of guilt. But instead they were met with ice-cold indifference. Lucille had gone on to marry another man and had 4 more children. When her old children stood before her, she showed absolutely no remorse. She didn't apologize, she didn't cry, and she didn't offer any comfort. To her, they were just a financial burden she had successfully disposed of decades ago. This haunting photograph from 1948 remains one of the most powerful and chilling images in modern history. It serves as a brutal reminder of what can happen when economic systems collapse and poverty pushes human beings to their absolute limits. It shows us that when global economies fail, the currency isn't just money. Sometimes the cost is human life, human dignity, and the destruction of the most sacred bond on earth, the bond between a parent and their child.